Hey guys, so wanted to give some really quick reactions to an unbelievable night of basketball last night and do this kind of short form thing really quick for you. Story number one is Ant's ascension. I'm sure you heard about it by now, most likely. Anthony Edwards had the greatest game I have personally ever seen him play in the league, and it comes hours after the unfortunate news about Karl-Anthony Towns. He'll be undergoing knee surgery after a meniscus tear. He is the second best offensive weapon on the Wolves roster, and that comes after the Wolves being the subject of a lot of scrutiny for their offensive potency. They have had the number one ranked defense all year, about middle of the pack offensive rating all year, and so Cat going out, everybody knew it was going to be a lot on Ant's shoulders. So how is he going to hold up? How is he going to respond? Well, the first game Ant has is against the best offense in the league. So the Indiana Pacers, led by Tyrese Halliburton, coming over from Sacramento, has really found a stride. First-time All-Star, very well-revered. Both guys, up there as candidates of the next faces of the league type of thing. So it was going to be a fun matchup to begin with, but you had the extra pressure on Ant to really perform here. So overall, he put up 44 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists in 38 minutes, going 3 of 7 from 3 and 5 of 8 from the free throw line. And what you're going to hear the most buzz about is how he performed in the fourth quarter and in crunch time specifically. So he put up a season-high 16 points in the fourth quarter that all came within the last 8 minutes of the game. And then specifically in crunch time, which is the last 5 minutes of the game, when the score is at least 5 points or fewer between the two teams, he went 4 of 6 from the floor. He made 3 field goal attempts that gave Minnesota the lead, so go-ahead shots coming from behind, basically. He scored 10 of Minnesota's last 12 points and then scored their last 8 consecutively. He had a steal in that period. He also hit 1 of 2 free throws to give them a 2-point lead going into the last possession, where Indiana would have the chance to tie it, go to overtime, or win the game, of course. And Anthony Edwards had maybe the greatest block that I have seen since LeBron's chase down on Iguodala, and it was actually weirdly pretty similar. He jumped so high, he actually hit his head on the rim and bottom of the backboard, so like kind of below the rim. Unbelievable show of not only how much of a physical specimen he is, but a lot of just competitiveness and desire to win the game. If you score 10 of the last 12 points in the final 5 minutes for your own team and seal the game with a block like that, woo! You got a lot going for you. Now to the so what quickly. Number one, you have the Wolves themselves as a team. This was, for all intents and purposes, a conference final game. Minnesota sticks it out without their second best offensive weapon. You gotta give credit to the Wolves as far as being a threat, as far as Chris Finch, the coach, pulling the levers, getting Naz Reid in, out, Kyle Anderson in, out, whatever. Even TJ Warren came in for minutes. Really, really impressive stuff. You have Anthony Edwards' legacy, this is now when the conversations are going to start. You're honoring your teammate who is undergoing this thing kind of unexpectedly, so that was great to see. And then in addition, he won this head-to-head matchup with that extra pressure against another young potential face of the league in Tyrese Halliburton. Everybody loves Tyrese. Everybody wants to play with Tyrese. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but this is when these kinds of things start to matter. Again, the added pressure on Ant, the way he responded throughout the game as well in crunch time. And also, I forgot to mention, he had to go into the locker room twice in this game. Once because he rolled his ankle on the first play of the entire game, and secondly, he had a nasty fall before halftime. So just want to call that out. As far as legacy goes, that is a huge, huge win for Ant. And the last but most important thing is, what is the Wolves' plan going forward? It is great and glorious for Ant and the team to have won this game. However, with Karl-Anthony Towns going to be out for 4 weeks now, I don't know how sustainable from a team-winning perspective it is to rely on Ant this much. He might finish in the top 5 in scoring in the league. I'm not sure that will translate necessarily to the team winning games, though. I'm very interested to see how he's going to play tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are a very, very fast-paced team, and they've shown a lot of grit as well, so we will see. I'm also concerned about the health risk, because if you watch that block that Ant had, he could have broken his wrist, fingers, shoulder, neck, face, back, all of it. Granted, he's like 22, so, young, yell, recover, yada, yada, it's not a big of a deal. He was clearly burdened with a lot of load to try and get this win. And man, he could have really messed himself up to seal the game. I'm glad it worked out, but that was a really big scare to me, and I don't see anybody calling that out. Secondly, and relatedly, Kyle Anderson and Jaden McDaniels need to become bigger threats on offense. This season, guys have barely even needed to guard them close to the perimeter and give Ant space to actually get to the rim because they've been so bad on offense. Kyle Anderson last night went 1 for 5 from the field in 28 minutes, put up 3 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 of 2 from the line. He put up 5 attempts in 28 minutes. How on earth are you going to even fool the brains of any serviceable defense into thinking that you are actually going to take a shot, let alone score anything? So you're going to clog the lane for Ant. It's going to hurt your team's overall effectiveness there. Secondly, Jaden McDaniels, you have 4 of 7 from the floor, also in 28 minutes. Goes 11 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Pretty solid overall impact. If Anderson had reasonably close to that, I think they win this game relatively handily. But my point is, there is a very real possibility that Kyle and Jaden making shots is ultimately the determinant for whether Minnesota gets out of the first round of the playoffs. They will have to be the ones to pick up some of the slack. So I'm very curious to see where they go from here. Story number 2. The Nuggets are the nuclear superpower. What is a nuke? Nikola Jokic. This was a finals preview, and man, it did not disappoint. Biggest thing for the what actually happened, Denver pretty much held about a 10-point lead or somewhere within that. They were leading virtually the entire game. Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis were absolute maniacs, and Jaylen Brown scored like 25 points in the first half, had 16 in the second quarter, had a bunch in the third, and these guys were just kind of chucking, and Tatum, White, and Drew Holiday weren't exactly showing up to an extent. It ultimately came down to a 2-point game with about a minute left after a late push by the Celtics and actually showing some defensive tenacity, ultimately falling to Denver. Both teams were full health, so it was easily the greatest regular season game, I think, so far. Maybe besides a double overtime between Golden State and the Lakers last year. So what? Number 1, where did the hero ball come from? The reason why Boston has been so dominant this year is because of their unstoppable, egalitarian top 6 in their rotation, meaning everybody in their top 6 is talented defensively and offensively. And then schematically, what they do is they do what Oklahoma City does and Golden State sort of, is a lot of player movement, drive, kick, 3, constantly refining the shot quality to get better and better shots until they just avalanche you with 3s, and then analytically they will win the game eventually. From the jump, they didn't even employ that model of movement and kicking and spacing and whatever. And it was so jarring to me that I actually couldn't tell if it was a schematic reason or an organic reason. Organic being the wear down of the confidence and the intimidation factor. Schematic being Joe Mazzulla saying to Jaylen, take a lot of shots in the first half. That will ultimately help open things up for Tatum in the second or the fourth quarter or something. There wasn't even a string of consecutive possessions where you saw Boston play the way that they had been playing this entire year. It was extremely jarring to me. It wasn't a classic Boston meltdown to me where Tatum's just missing shots. White's just timid and missing. Not only did you have those two guys singularly taking almost all of the shots until like the end of the game, the fourth quarter, they weren't even touching the ball, let alone missing their shot. And it was very, very confusing to me. And so something to monitor. Definitely have some big question marks moving forward about that. Over to the other side, they played super, super well. They are a well-oiled machine playing out of Jokic, and his superpower is being super, super big. You have to bring a second defender, right, to try to get the ball, and then he's just gonna kick it wherever you're sending guys, right? Played really well. The system looked great. It was really humming. Peyton Watson as well had another incredible block on Derek White. His defensive tenacity was incredible. I think he had maybe a couple steals too, but he was a standout to me. Last thing I just want to say about the so what thing, I swear I'm not a Denver Nuggets hater, But listen to me. That last lob to Aaron Gordon, I don't think it's as unbelievable as people are making it out to be. And I think it's time that we start having somebody out here explain why that is. It's like 82% or something of Aaron Gordon's total minutes played as a Denver Nugget has been at the same time as Nikola Jokic. So they just know each other really well. 90% of Aaron Gordon's job is to do exactly that thing. With Jokic, when he gets too close to the basket, it'll be like second defender. Jokic only needs to see which defender is coming over to provide help to know exactly where to throw the pass. Most of the time, that second defender will come off of Aaron Gordon because he is right next to the basket in the dunker spot. And because this is always how they play, when Drew Holiday comes off of AG on that last play, Jokic doesn't even need to see Aaron at all, because that is always what Aaron Gordon does. 90% of his role is to finish those lobs and get offensive rebounds. When Jokic misses or someone else on the outside misses, he's just going to be sitting in the dunker spot. The other 5% are like threes and maybe some other stuff. And then the other 5% is defending the best wing player or power forward or whatever it is on the other team, which is obviously a huge deal. I'm not trying to downplay that connection or suggest it's easy to prevent. It is not. And that nobody has figured that out. But all I'm saying is, like, guys, Jokic doesn't need to see his teammates to know exactly where they're going to be. You only need to know which defender is coming over to provide help defense to double team the ball out of Jokic's hands. Drew is guarding AG. Drew came over to guard me as a second defender. Therefore, AG is open. Therefore, it's over. So, not a huge deal. I'm just calling this out, guys. I don't know how big brain this has to be, and I don't know how to solve this, but like, listen, let's not pretend that this is unbelievable mastery. This is how they have played for years now, okay? Last story I just want to cover really quickly is the unfortunate side. So Golden State loses a really tough heartbreaker to Chicago that has obviously had a very underwhelming season this year. But the worst part is that Steph Curry goes down with a pretty severe looking ankle injury with about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. If you didn't know this, Steph has a pretty concerning history of ankle injuries, and that's why you'll see him with ankle braces always. In the league nowadays, you don't really see a lot of times guys even wearing ankle braces, but if you've ever looked at Steph, you know he has to, because this is a very serious problem. Klay Thompson, after the game, when asked about it, made it very, very clear. It sounded like he was contingency planning to play without Steph for some time. Draymond was also asked, and he mentioned Steph was going to get an MRI, and we got the news from woes today. He is undergoing that MRI. Hopefully it comes back okay. The Golden State Warriors are currently 33-29 in ninth place in the West, and the Lakers are right behind them at 34-30. They have the same game behind, but divisionally, Golden State is marginally better. The good news is that the 11th seed is like 6 games below. Utah is not trying to win, so I don't really see the Warriors not making the play-in. It will definitely just be a function of how do you build that momentum going into the postseason. They were just getting everybody healthy to begin with, and sort of building that chemistry that you want to have, that momentum going into the postseason. So very unfortunate there. Klay was just fitting in off the bench, so I really feel for the Warriors today. So fingers crossed it works out. That's all for today, guys. Just wanted to give you some context, and hopefully that's insightful.